the sleeper car, ticket with my name and his compartment. The ticket sat under our salt cellar like a small, patient emergency. Pale blue, perforated edge, the old railway font that thinks it has earned your trust. At the top, overnight 302, berth 6A where a name should live, mine blinked back, for Julian in a cashier's neatness that felt like a dare. Down the margin in pen that had practiced stopping, if you still want the truth, car C, 10:05 p.m. R. I tune pianos for a living. It teaches you how to breathe before deciding which of two strings is lying. At home, we keep two glasses near the sink because Evan, my partner, believes water can keep a room from setting itself on fire. He designs exhibitions for the museum that pretends daylight is a verb. 5 years in, we've learned the angles of each other's apologies, the temperatures of silence. He came back late from a meeting that turned into dinner, smelling like cedar and the last hour of a lobby. He undressed in the hall the way you do when the bedroom has started to remember everything. Now there was a ticket under the salt cellar. I took the 8:42 tram to the station because cabs add strangers to confessions that already have enough witnesses. Concourse clocks pretended to be useful. The old split-flap boards fluttered like a flock trying to land. I bought a bottle of water and passed the kiosk where a boy explained to a woman how trains don't actually run on time. People do. Car C, green-shaded lamps, carpets in the color of middle-aged hope. The conductor glanced at my ticket and nodded like he wanted to absolve me before I asked. Berth 6A belonged to a corridor where curtains knew how to hide and metal learned to mind itself. The key fob dangled from a hook. The air smelled like linen deciding to forgive iron. He opened the compartment door before I could knock. Rowan. I knew him from programs and grant reports, a choreographer who could convince 100 bodies to be a single thought. Taller than I remembered from the fundraiser where everyone liked his collarbones. Shirt open one step past polite, hair surrendered to travel and somehow improved by it. He smelled like cedar and a day that had made too many choices. "You came," he said, stepping aside, not triumph, relief. "You wrote my name on a train I didn't book," I said, setting the bottle on the tiny table as if flat surfaces could keep us decent. "It seemed rude to leave you alone with sentiment." He didn't touch me. He reached for the ladder that leads to the upper berth and tested it like a man telling himself to be better. "Evan thinks he's meeting me at the next stop to end something politely," he said. "I thought you should have the room first." "Why me?" I asked, because questions are tools when you don't want to make fists. "Why now?" "Because secrets like to pretend they weigh something," he said. "But they don't, not once you put them in the right air. And because last month at the museum I watched you tell a donor that gold leaf makes a word harder to read, and I thought, I want to be told the truth by someone who doesn't love his own sentences." The compartment was a narrow, earnest thing, 2 bunks, a window that practiced night, 2 hooks that probably had opinions. My name on the ticket felt like a coin that had chosen sides. Rowan poured water into the fold-out glass with ceremony that mocked itself and handed it to me. Our fingers touched. Heat arrived like an autobiography. He came closer, stopping with an inch between his hand and my neck. The inch became its own small country. My body wrote a petition. My better nature stamped it later. "How long?" I asked, putting the glass down because hands deserve work when rooms want to turn into stories. 8 months, he said. "It started with rain and an elevator and the lobby that sells permission. I ended it twice. He sent me a photograph of your breakfast and a complaint about a labeling font, and I mistook that for virtue." He sat on the lower berth, leaned back against the wall, and looked at me like a man willing to be measured. I stood because chairs make liars out of posture. The train shifted. The compartment taught us which surfaces would forgive us. The corridor door opened with the modesty of good hinges. Evan stepped in with the face he gives docents, earnest, precise, the exact volume of a conscience that isn't ready to stop rehearsing. He saw me and Rowan and the birth and didn't look at the birth because he knows which objects deserve attention first. He closed the door. The latch settled into itself like a plan. "Okay," he said. The words sat between us, quiet and competent. "You could have kept the ticket out of our kitchen," I said. "You chose not to." "I chose incompetence," he said, and I loved him in one corner of my chest for bailing out language. "And then cowardice. I cheated. I told myself it was weather and home is a noun that survives rain. I told myself your patience is elastic. I told myself newness is improvement. I am tired of hearing me." Rowan had moved towards the window the way decent men do when air needs a job. He watched my mouth with the attention of someone who reads for a living and hates that he's good at it. He lifted his hand again towards my neck and paused at that ridiculous inch. The restraint was more erotic than a mouth could have survived. I drank water because bodies are simple machines with old instructions. "What do you want me to do?" Evan asked, and it did more work than a speech. "You'll end it," I said. "You'll sleep on the couch we refuse to call a guest anything. Next week you'll tell me what this was twice. Once in your museum voice that spackles narrative, once with small words. I'll decide what my hands can hold without lying to my wrists." "I'll do that," he said. The train eased past a signal that meant we all might, in fact, get somewhere. Rowan exhaled. He came near enough for breath to draw borders on my skin, put his mouth by my ear without letting it touch me, and said softly, "Thank you for not making me into a lesson." Then he left, trusting the corridor to behave. Evan and I sat opposite each other on the narrow bench. The compartment learned our weight. The bottle sweated on the table like it had been asked to confess. Somewhere, the conductor's key rattled a declaration to no one. "I'm not leaving tonight," I said. "We'll go home without touching. We'll wait at crosswalks because other people's knees and our better natures both deserve seconds. You'll sleep on the couch. Tomorrow you'll end it without complimenting him. Next week you'll bring me small words." He nodded. He didn't cry. I still love him for that. The train leaned into the curve and the city outside became a rumor. We stood when the intercom lied cheerfully about arrival times. We walked the corridor single file, not because the train insisted, but because dignity did. On the platform, a woman told her luggage she was proud of it. Evan reached in reflex when a boy tripped. His palm hovered near my hip. He'd offered me a version of mercy I could both want and refuse. I refused. A man is allowed to pick the boring tool that keeps the lock from lying. At home, the kettle auditioned and then boiled. He laid blankets on the couch with curator care. I slept like somebody who had disassembled a device and wasn't ready to test it. In the morning, he returned from a lobby that sells permission smelling like nothing, the cologne I endorse. He ended it. He told me the truth twice. In the museum version, narrative tried to sand bone into story. In small words, he said, I liked being applauded by an audience that hadn't watched me be kind at 7 a.m., he said. I mistook spark for structure. He said, I can be one person if you let me do the work. I let him. It is not a finale. It is the part no one posts because it refuses to shout. He slept on the couch for 6 nights and learned the distance between our door and our bed like a map you redraw until it behaves. On the 7th he came to me and remembered my mouth with the lazy precision we taught each other early and almost forgot. Erotic is not a command. It's a compliance you volunteer after choosing. 2 days later, Rowan texted once. Thank you for letting me tell the truth in motion. I wrote back, "Try it when the room isn't helping." He didn't reply, which was the second decent thing he did. Work became itself again. The Steinway at the conservatory had a sulk in the middle octave. I coaxed it like an old promise until the unisons remembered their manners. In a church basement, I told a choir director his pedal sounded like a secret he was tired of keeping. We eased the spring, and the truth stopped looking like effort. A boy brought me a bruised guitar, and I let him turn the truss rod himself. The neck sighed into straightness, and he looked at me like I had invented consequence. A week later, I saw Rowan outside the museum. He looked smaller. Maybe my anger had stopped needing him to be tall. He said hello without trying to own my afternoon. He did not smell like cedar. We stood under the awning long enough to absolve the weather. Then he left without auditioning for a moral. Here is the thing people tell badly because it refuses to pay attention to drama. I wanted him. I wanted the inch, the heat, the careful delay of a hand that knew how not to claim. I wanted to make a mistake I could narrate. I did not. Wanting is a sentence, not a command. Bodies vote. Ethics count. Boredom is underrated if it likes you in the morning. Evan and I adjusted our frame. 2 glasses before 3 sentences. Less reach, better touch. We stopped letting the kettle decide tone. We stood near exits at openings for reasons that weren't about leaving. Sometimes we sat on benches not because we were tired, but because rooms deserve people who don't mistake standing for courage. If another ticket waits under our salt cellar with my name on the perforation, I will bring water. I will sit where the exit is obvious and not call that cowardice. If a hand lifts toward my neck, I will let the inch exist and answer in a tense I can carry past noon. I will keep choosing verbs that keep us possible. End, stay, tell, work, touch, wait. And when I strike middle C and feel 2 strings agree like a room remembering its manners, I will think about the night we chose repair on a moving train built to stage finales, and I will call that deliberate air the most difficult thing I know how to make, and the one that still holds when daylight forgets its lines.